programme where it helps the audience. And that is the policy that we are adopting.
Right. Gentlemen and Miss Lawrence, thank you all very much for that. We're going to pause there, but we'll be back in a moment. But just for now, we're going over to the newsroom for a news flash.
Where we now join Michael Burke.
An airliner with 118 passengers on board has crashed on the M1 motorway in Leicestershire. It came down near junction 24 of the motorway, just short of the East Midlands Airport. Eyewitnesses say it was coming into the airport with an engine on fire when it crashed into a motorway embankment. The aircraft's a British Midland Airline DC-9, which was en route from Heathrow to Belfast, before reporting engine trouble and asked to make an emergency landing at East Midlands Airport. There are reports of survivors, but no details of the number of casualties yet. 30 ambulances have been sent to the scene of the crash. A short while ago, an eyewitness described what happened.
A lot of noise, as if it was a backfire, flames coming out of the port engine, very much nose up and wing down on the port side, as if he was struggling for height. On the final approach, he got very close. They go out of sight just as they come into the final approach from where my house is situated. And at that point, the noise was very much curtailed. Normally, we hear the noise continue for a little longer, and then we hear the reverse thrust, and you know that the plane is down on the runway. This didn't occur. We checked in on the emergency service frequency, and we've had reports that there's debris on both carriageways of the M1. So it sounds as though the plane probably came down just before the M1.
A few minutes ago, I spoke to Alan Parker, who's the Chief Ambulance Officer in Leicestershire.
At this stage, we're still receiving reports from the scene, but we understand it's a DC-9 with about 118 passengers on board that has come down just short of East Midlands Airport on the M1 motorway.
So are the casualties not just on the aircraft itself, but maybe on the motorway too?
That's a distinct possibility because it's landed on the motorway, but we're not sure at this stage. I certainly can't confirm whether there are ground casualties or not.
So you've got no idea yet of how many people might have been killed? How many people might have survived even?
We haven't at this stage, no. Obviously, we're very shortly into the incident and it's very busy up there at the stage.
What sort of operation is being mounted?
It's a very extensive operation. We have 30-plus ambulances and officers on the scene or on the way to the scene, and obviously the other emergency services are also in attendance.
From the reports you've got so far, this is clearly a major incident.
Without a doubt, yes.
And we do have reports that some people may well have survived the air crash. BBC reporter Ian Woods is on the scene. Ian, what can you see? What have you heard? What do you know so far?
Well, the plane came down at around about 8:10 just before we get to junction 24 off the M1 motorway. It was making an emergency landing, as we've heard. It doesn't appear to have hit the motorway too badly. It appears to have come down on an embankment, about a 30-feet high embankment, which straddles the M1 motorway, and is now lying in three pieces, straddling that embankment. The rescue services are still at the scene. Survivors are still being brought off. And I have to say at the moment, it does appear as if a lot of people have survived. I have only personally seen one fatality so far. That has been confirmed as one person dead so far. But there are a lot of people who have been brought off this aircraft, still very much alive, and a fleet of ambulances are now carrying them to hospital at the moment.
Ian Woods, thank you. Just to recap, an aircraft has crashed on the M1 motorway near the East Midlands Airport. It was a British Midland Airlines DC-9 en route from Heathrow to Belfast when it tried to land at East Midlands Airport because it had engine trouble. We don't know how many casualties there are. We don't know how many survivors there have been. There will be more in the news programme at 10 o'clock on BBC-1.
Now we rejoin Sue Lawley.
And now welcome back to See for Yourself, where the Chairman and the Director General of the BBC are answering questions from viewers and listeners around the country. And our next questioner is Trevor Silliphant, who is a local councillor from Holsworthy in Devon. Mr. Silliphant, your question, please.
Hello and very good evening, Sue. Nice to be with you. As many of you know, I'm very much interested in BBC local radio. We have a very fine station here in BBC Radio Devon and BBC Radio Cornwall. The manager and their staff give excellent service to the community. But I'd like to address this question to Mr. Checkland. Why, in goodness sake, are you going to cut off 10% of the funding to local radio, and what are you going to do with it? To me, this is utter ridiculous.